Neurological Disorders, Lesson 1.2. How does brain structure impact its function? The goals of this lesson are to start students thinking spatially about how the brain is organized and to locate the main structures of the brain and identify their functions. At the end of this lesson, students should be able to identify the location of the main structures of the brain, name the primary function for the main structures of the brain, and predict which structure is damaged based on functional symptoms. We'll achieve our goals by first having a sheep brain dissection and then analyzing a case study. To prepare for this lesson, you'll need to review the key scientific concepts presented in it. They include the organization of the brain, which is the locations of main brain structures and the functions of those main brain structures. We'll also talk about the relationship between brain structure and brain function. You can review the scientific content in the background reading provided to you in the teacher primer, the teacher manual, and the student workbook. The teacher primer provides in-depth knowledge about the scientific content presented in the lesson. The teacher manual or lesson plan provides a minute-by-minute explanation of the lesson structure, including instructions on how to manage the discussion and activity, and the student workbook provides additional explanation for students. You'll also need to be sure to print the dissection worksheet, dissection picture guide. You might find it useful to laminate or put these picture guides in sheet protectors to protect them during the lab, which will allow you to more easily reuse them in future years, as well as homework worksheets for your students. This lesson also requires additional materials, including sheep brains. You'll want to order the sheep brains with meninges still attached so that students can analyze and remove them, gloves, dissecting tray and instruments, and a plastic bag for storage and disposal of the brains once you're done. The key point of the lessons due now is to focus on the relationship between brain structure and function. We'll get to this key point by reviewing last night's homework, in which students completed a worksheet that had them research the function of the main structures of the brain. One resource students could use to assist them with this research was their student workbook, specifically the reading associated with today's lesson, Lesson 1.2. The key point of the activity is to locate the brain's main structures. We'll get to this key point through a lab in which students dissect a sheep's brain. To complete the dissection, students will follow their worksheets and picture guide. The lesson PowerPoint has the images from the dissection picture guide, so you may want to use it to keep your students on task throughout the dissection. To ensure that students finish within the allotted time, you'll probably want to lead the class through the 5 main steps of the dissection. Those are: Step 1, gather supplies. Students will need a sheep's brain, gloves, dissecting tray and instruments, plastic bag for storage or disposal, dissection picture guide, and a dissection worksheet. Step 2, students will orient the sheep brain and remove the meninges. Step 3, students will identify brain structures from the right hemisphere and underside of the brain. PowerPoint slide 2 illustrates the main structures to be identified in the right hemisphere, and PowerPoint slide 3 illustrates the main structures to be identified from the underside of the brain. Step 4, make a sagittal cut, which is lengthwise from front to back, to reveal the subcortical structures of the brain. PowerPoint slide 4 illustrates the main structures to be identified after making a sagittal cut. And step 5, make a coronal cut, which is from right to left across the front of the brain, to reveal the gray and white matter. PowerPoint slide 5 illustrates the gray and white matter that will be revealed after making a coronal cut. The key points of the wrap-up are to show good lab practice. We'll get to this key point by having students clean up after the brain dissection. After students have finished the dissection, they can place the brains in a plastic bag labeled with their names, and you can collect them for storage. The brains can be stored at a cool temperature, preferably but not necessarily in a refrigerator. Alternatively, you could dispose of the brain after the lesson. The key point of the homework is to explore the relationship between brain structure and function. We'll get to this key point by having students analyze a case study on stroke. For homework, students will be completing a worksheet that has them analyze a case study on stroke. To complete the homework successfully, students need to apply their understanding of the functions of specific brain structures in order to predict which brain structures were likely damaged in a stroke. If students need assistance with this homework, they should refer back to the reading in the workbook for today's lesson. Students often ask lots of questions about which structures they're looking at within the sheep brains. You can find more in the teacher primer, teacher manual, student workbook, and dissection video posted on our website. One of the most common questions teachers get is, where do the sheep brains come from? Most companies that supply sheep brains for dissection obtain them from slaughterhouses, which are using the sheep for other things than just their brains. But this is something you should double check when you order brains for your class. Another common concern that this lesson raises is students who object to using animals in scientific research. What should they do to meet the learning objectives of the day? These students can watch the video of the brain dissection we've provided on our website and still complete the worksheet. Additionally, these students could complete a virtual brain dissection. There are several great ones available, but you will need to double check that your computer or tablet has the necessary plugins to play the dissection correctly. These virtual dissections are also a great option for classes that don't have access to a wet lab or the budget to purchase sheep brains. At the end of the lesson, students should be able to locate the brain's main structures and name a function of each. Additionally, students should begin to be able to predict which areas of the brain are affected based on the functional or behavioral symptoms a patient is displaying. The relationship between brain structure and brain function will be a key concept that we revisit often throughout this module, so students will need to be comfortable with making the connection between structure and function. Case studies will be used throughout the module, so students will need to become comfortable with analyzing cases and using evidence from them to make arguments about the brain. Don't forget, if you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, to let us know. You can contact any of the CTSE team members and we'd be happy to help you.